Hey guys, it's FoForMamaAndMoney.com, where I teach you how to make and manage money to become financially free. In this video, I'm going to be sharing 5 financial mistakes that I made in my 20s. So hopefully you can avoid them. If you're interested in learning what you should do, stay tuned. Alright guys, so in this video, I'm going to be sharing some bad financial decisions that I made in my 20s. So before I became Mama and Money, the certified financial educator, I did make my share of financial mistakes. So I want to share those with you. 1, to let you know that you're not alone, but 2, to also give you some things that you should probably try to avoid in your 20s or 30s or wherever you may be at in life. So let's hop in. So the first mistake that I made in my finances in my 20s was not saving money. Now, it's not that I didn't want to save money, it's that I tried to save money, but then I undid all the work that I did. So let me tell you a story. So when I was in my 20s, I remember having a conversation with my best friend, and she told me how she was putting money aside from her paycheck. Every time she got paid, she would put money in a savings account. Now, I had no kind of financial education. I didn't know how to manage money. So I was like, that is a great idea. Let me do that for my own finances. So I decided that I was gonna put $35 away in savings every time I got paid. The problem was that a lot of times I would put the money in my savings account, but then I would have to transfer it back out because there was something I wanted to buy, or because I had bought something and I needed the money to cover to make sure I paid my bills on time. So it was a lot of things that played, but ultimately it ended up being that I didn't save any money. And that came to hurt me later on because I went to move cities for my job, and although they paid for it, at the time I didn't have the money to make the deposit on the new place that I would be staying at, and I had no money in savings. So I was only left to go to the bank to try to get a loan, and as the Lord would have it, I got declined.
Ooh.
But now that I'm older and know a lot more about financial institutions and inequality and all that stuff, it's probably more than one reason that I got declined for that loan. But I was trying to take out a $1,000 loan to pay for the deposit and first month's rent for the place that I was going, and it didn't work out. But if I had that money saved and set aside, I would have had the cash to pay for all the stuff that I needed to for that move. So nonetheless, the biggest mistake I made was not having money saved and thinking that just because I didn't have the $35 to save that I couldn't save the $1 or the $5. So my advice to you is to save what you can. Even if you can't do 35, 50, 100, save something because it will come in handy when you need it. The second financial mistake that I made may surprise you. It's actually going to grad school. Yes, going to grad school was a huge financial mistake for me, and I'll explain why. Now, I've shared this before. The real reason that I went to grad school was because I wasn't ready to be an adult. I was not ready for full-time bills. I was not ready for a full-time job. I was not ready for adult responsibilities. So I went to grad school as a kind of like a gap year is what they call it now. Gap year wasn't a thing back then, but it was an expensive gap year. And I think the better decision for me would have been to wait until I started working and then let my employer pay for grad school. But again, I wasn't going to grad school because I actually wanted a graduate degree per se, or that I wanted to be back in school. It was just because I didn't want to be an adult. But it cost me so much money. So here's the advice that I give to young people who ask me about grad school. If you don't need it for your career, do not put yourself in additional debt to go. Make the most of your undergrad, make the most of that experience, get internships, do co-ops so that you can get a job and secure yourself a job without having to go to grad school. So that's my advice. It worked out for me, you know, in my life. I needed that time away because so much happened in that time I was in grad school, but financially it was not the best decision. The third financial mistake that I made in my 20s, actually, for all intents and purposes, it should not be a mistake, but it was a mistake in my situation. And that was hiring a financial advisor. It's crazy to think that that would actually be a financial mistake, but it was. When I was in my 20s, I hired a financial advisor. I've shared this story before. He didn't advise me on anything except for I need to get life insurance. So let me back up. A financial advisor came to my employer, talked about how we should be budgeting, managing money. I was like, I have no clue how to do any of that. Teach me. So I hired this guy. I paid around like $600, $700 for his services for the year. and learned absolutely nothing. The only thing that I got out of that service was him pushing me to get life insurance, which I ended up getting later on in life. But at the time, sir, I needed you to help me learn how to budget, and he didn't teach me. And so the thing that I learned from that was like, no one else is responsible for your own personal finances. It's personal finances for a reason. So that mistake, although it cost me several hundreds of dollars, it was the catalyst for me actually taking responsibility for my money, reading books, watching videos like you're watching now, reading articles, and really learning how to manage my money on my own. So it was definitely a costly financial mistake, assuming that someone could help me manage my money. But I learned so much from it. So the mistake was hiring someone with the expectation that they would help me with my finances, when the reality was, even though he called himself a financial advisor, he really was just an insurance broker. He was trying to get me to buy into life insurance so that he could get some kind of commission off of it. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I think financial advisors have their place, but at the end of the day, you are responsible for learning how to manage your money. Educate yourself. There are so many free resources out here, including this channel, to teach you how to do that. So that was definitely one of the financial mistakes that I made in my 20s. The fourth financial mistake that I made was spending money on stuff that was depreciating. And when I say depreciating, I don't mean like a car or anything, but things like makeup, things like clothes, things like hair extensions. Like, I had spent so much money on things that could have been used towards saving and even investing. And I think a lot of people actually get caught up in this when they're in their 20s. They want to stay on top of trends, or they believe that, hey, I've perhaps graduated from college, I have this job, I deserve to have nice things in life, when we don't deserve anything. Everything is by the grace of God, but also you can't afford it, and neither could I. So I was spending so much money on things that I didn't need, instead of putting it in more responsible financial assets like saving, investing, and perhaps even financial education. My spending habits were causing me to live paycheck to paycheck. I felt like because I had a job, because I had graduated college, because I had done all the things right, I deserved to be able to live this life. Like, I deserved to be able to travel. And I quickly realized, ma'am, you're broke. So that was a financial mistake that I made in my 20s, is living beyond my means and spending more money than I needed to spend, and not really being responsible or a good steward of the money that God had given me. The fifth mistake that I made is not having a budget. All of this stuff that I just mentioned all came about because I didn't have a plan for my money. I didn't have a budget. And the truth of the matter is, I didn't know how to budget. And the great thing about the internet now is there is so much availability of resources that, quite honestly, if you're in your 20s now, there is no excuse for you not to have this information. Even if you're beyond your 20s, the information is there. It just wasn't as readily available or as easily accessible for me back then that it is now. So that is one thing that I made a mistake on, is not having a plan for my money. My plan literally was get paid, pay my bills. Hopefully I can save. And so that's not a good enough plan. I needed to have a plan for, of course, paying my bills, putting money away for savings, but having a plan for retirement, having a plan for building wealth. And I think at age 20, you're not really thinking about life in that viewpoint, right? You're thinking about the now for the most part. And a lot of this comes with maturity. So it's not to say that, I knew better in my 20s and I just didn't do it. It was like, I just didn't know better. But now that I'm older, those are mistakes that I recognize. So I definitely think I should have had a more broader view or futuristic view of how I handled my money, so that I made better financial decisions in my 20s that would have impacted my future. So those are my 5 financial mistakes that I made in my 20s. Hopefully this was helpful for you, and that you can avoid some of the same mistakes that I made. Definitely leverage the resources that I leave in the description box, so that you can get on a budget and create a financial plan, create a savings plans, and do all the things that I wish I had done in my 20s. All right, guys, I will talk to you in another video. Bye.